is Deryn Rizzi. I'm the Fire Chief and Director of Emergency Management for the City of Mississauga. I've been in the fire service for over 21 years, and I'm pleased to represent Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services. So the story about how I became a firefighter, it's actually quite unique. I used to be an avid athlete as a youth. So I was on the Canadian triathlon team and I competed at the World Championships, and I was also on the Ontario cycling team. So athletics was a huge part of my life. And I got into teaching, and my day, it kind of reminded me of Groundhog Day, right? I taught kindergarten. So we had snack time, and we had lunchtime, and we had snack time, and this went on for about 3 years, and I thought, this isn't what I want to do with the rest of my life. So I was swimming with the master swim team. One of the swimmers happened to be a firefighter. I really didn't know much about firefighting, quite honestly, but he suggested that I write an entrance exam. So there was Vaughan Fire was hiring, Toronto was hiring, and Markham was hiring. So I went in and I competed for a job. So with Vaughan, I competed against about 2,000 other people. It was quite competitive, multiple stages, and I don't know how I was so fortunate, but I landed a job. And that just started me on a journey that I look back and I find myself to be so fortunate in the fire service. It's a career I absolutely love, I'm passionate about. I talk about it all the time, I think about it all the time. So I became a firefighter, then I was an acting captain, a training officer, a captain. And at that particular time, it was quite unusual. What had happened was a deputy chief position opened up. My platoon chief suggested that I go and interview just to show that, I had some ideas, have a seat at the table. I went through 5 rounds of interviews, and I landed the job as the deputy fire chief. And I never expected that. It was a great opportunity, and as doors open, I just continue to walk through them. So eventually I became the fire chief for the city of Vaughan, and then I moved to Mississauga. It's a large fire service. We have 763 personnel with firefighters, our mechanics, training officers, fire prevention, plans examiners. We have multiple groups of people that ensure the safety of our community. While I'd love to be in the fire hall each and every day, that's not really my role or responsibility. What I'm responsible for is to ensure that the fire service is always evolving and ensuring that we're innovative and progressive. Some of the things that I do include strategic planning, reviewing our service levels. I do report writing. I meet with internal and external stakeholders. I ensure open and transparent communication with mayor, members of council, and obviously the community, and ensure that we have a service that is meeting the needs of our community. The success of Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services is all about the incredible team that's around me. So from firefighters, fire prevention, inspectors, to investigators, to our training officers, mechanics, plans examiners, communication operators, administration, they all play an incredible role in keeping our community safe. We all work towards a common goal, and that's fire and life safety in our community, and I can't thank them enough for the great work that they do each and every day. So my former chief, he always said, it's the captain that will put you on your path to success. And I truly believe that. And in terms of my career development and what I've achieved in my career, I always attribute it to my colleagues. I've been surrounded by people that have really wanted to help me. They have understood the importance of team dynamics. So when one team member is weak at a certain skill or knowledge, it's important to develop that to ensure that the entire team is strong. In terms of being a role model in the community, that's important too. I feel like I have a voice for those firefighters or people that want to get into firefighting that come from an underrepresented group. It's important that we have firefighters that reflect the community that we serve. So we're here in the engine, otherwise known as our pump truck, and as a fire chief, it would be an incredibly bad day if I was actually driving the truck. I haven't done this in about 10 years, but I wanted to talk to you today about recruiting and a job as a firefighter. So a lot of people ask, how do I become a firefighter? And in the province of Ontario, you do need to get certifications for most fire services. So you need your NFPA 1001, level 1, level 2, and your hazmat. So that could be NFPA 472 is the old standard. It's now moving to 1072 for hazmat. But those are the minimum qualifications. Plus, you need to be able to drive this bad boy. So you need your DZ license. So you'd have to go to a third-party provider to get that as well. It's incredibly competitive. You need to go through your schooling, get your certification, then a number of fire services will post a recruitment. You'll go through a written test, you'll go through a practical test so that we know you know how to use equipment like ropes and axes and Halligan tools, and you can identify different tools. You also have to go through physical fitness testing. Some fire services are now also doing psychological testing to ensure that you have the resiliency to do the type of work that we do. Obviously, we go to a lot of tragic incidents, and you have to have that resiliency to be able to continue to do that for your career. It is the best job in the world. And of course, I'm quite biased, but if you ask any firefighter, they will tell you that as well. We have lots of different opportunities, so you don't have to only be an operations firefighter. We have jobs like a communications operator, a fire prevention inspector, an investigator, so somebody that goes and determines the origin and cause of the fire, mechanics. We have administrators, so many different opportunities in the fire service, not just being a firefighter. We do open houses once a year, and we generally do recruitments every single year as well. If you're interested in joining our Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services team, go to the website and look at our career page, and we post jobs there quite often. Every year we host open houses. Generally they're virtual, and we also do recruitment campaigns annually as well. So it's important for people that are applying to become a firefighter that are already parents. It's important to understand that the shifts are quite long. So an operations firefighter works a 24-hour shift. They have several days off, and then they come back in for another 24. Our comms operators, they do 10-hour days, 14-hour nights. So a lot of different personnel in the fire service have very long shifts, and that can be overwhelming or concerning to people that are applying for the fire service. You do need to understand that sometimes you're away for birthdays, certainly holidays, weekends, nights. But for those that are single parents, I really want to stress that the emergency services world and shift work world is quite expensive. So there's police officers, nurses, transit operators, and all these people need to be very imaginative and find solutions for childcare options. And there are options out there, so I would never want that to be a stumbling block for anyone applying. Just to understand that those are challenges that you will face. Diversity and inclusion is incredibly important in the fire service, and as a fire chief, it's my job to ensure that we have a fire service that's reflective of the community that we serve, that it's culturally sensitive, that we serve everyone, providing the best possible service that we can. And as a fire chief, I try and take leadership. So I was the chair of the International Association of Fire Chiefs Human Relations Committee and the Canadian representative on the international board there. And I'm also on the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee as well. So we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're integrating it into our recruitment and our hiring practices. Certainly then on a move forward in terms of embracing those that are from underrepresented groups on our team, ensuring that there's no barriers to promotions. So we're doing a lot of work in that respect. As a fire chief, I live in the fire hall. Just joking. I go home, obviously. I am on call 24/7, 365. I like to go hiking. If I have time off, I'll go camping. I read modern Mississauga, of course. And I like to spend time, obviously, with friends, family, loved ones. So something that I love to do is I run almost every day. I find it's incredibly helpful just for thinking, right? We spend a lot of our day responding to emails, in meetings, making decisions, and it gives me time to step back and really process things like planning and analyzing and just thinking about things without a lot of distractions. And I try and do that every single day. Do I ever get to go on vacation? Well, I know I just told you that I work or I have to be on call 24/7, 365, but of course I need a break too. So I'm very fortunate to have some incredible people around me. They're called deputy chiefs, and they can step into my role when I'm off on vacation. So what will happen is I identify one of them, they become the acting fire chief and make decisions, and then they're responsible to report to mayor, members of council, and obviously the community in my absence. Thanks for visiting us at Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services. But before you go, there's one more thing that we should talk about, and that's working smoke alarms. Please make sure you have a working smoke alarm on every floor of your home. It's the law, and ensure you have it outside of all sleeping areas.